Today, we're going to be talking about how to build muscle in the gym. And that's a very important caveat because we're not talking about calories here. We're not talking about protein. We're not talking into the nutritional aspects about building muscle. What I really want to do is give you outlines on how to actually achieve results in the gym. Because you can work very hard and still be poor. And the same thing is true about the gym. You can go to the gym, you can show up consistently, you can work hard, and you will still not have optimal results. There's so many people who are talking about like the science of weightlifting, and there's a whole other community that's like, you don't need to understand all that, you just need to really go there and work hard. And it's partly true, like you need to be able to go to the gym and push yourself, but you also need to know what the fuck you're doing when you show up to the gym to optimize your time. You need to work both smart and hard. And today, what we're gonna really be talking about is the things you can do to work smarter when you actually train. And one of the things we're gonna be talking about, one of the 4 principles, is actually in itself working fucking hard. And another principle is actually consistency. The 4 principles we'll be talking about today, first and foremost, mechanical tension. That's an example of working smart. Second, progressive overload. That's kind of a combination of working smart and hard. Third principle we'll be talking about is intensity, which is just simply gritting and working hard. And the fourth is volume, which is really about consistency. But I'm gonna intellectualize each of these principles because these are the things that are gonna really allow you to supercharge your results when you show up to the gym. The first topic that we're gonna talk about today is mechanical tension. And all mechanical tension means is that your muscle is being utilized the entire time you're weight training. And there's always going to be degrees depending on the exercise, or maybe you just have some sort of alignment issue that won't allow for optimal mechanical tension. But you want to be doing your very best when you're weight training to make sure that your muscles are working the entire time. You have mechanical tension throughout the entire repetition. The first principle I want to talk about is what I call what a gentleman who's known as the hypertrophy coach calls the circle rep. He did such an amazing analogy explaining this that I'm actually going to take it and use it while crediting him because I think he did a great example of explaining what a repetition is. So you go and go to the gym and you do sets of an exercise. Like you go, for example, and do a leg press or you do a bench press and you do sets, like 3 sets, and those are a series of repetitions which make up a set. So 3 times 10 is 3 sets of 10 repetition. I think most of you understand that. That's really very basic knowledge. But what people don't understand is what a repetition should look like. So the analogy that he has, the hypertrophy coach, is a circle of a repetition. And what I want you to think about is this circle represents a optimally done repetition so that you get mechanical tension. So if I was doing a curl, I would have tension from the very start all the way through the end. And that would be a complete circle, or also another way to think about it, 100% of a circle. So that 100% of my curl is optimized. And this is something as an example of working smart that you really want to make sure that you're getting the most out of each and every single rep. Because at a very micro level, you training in the gym involves reps. That's the smallest possible example of how to optimize your training, making sure that each and every single one of your reps is as meaningful as possible. I know it sounds ridiculous, but you need to understand something. There are literally professional bodybuilders that devote their entire life to building muscle. Genetically gifted human beings on copious amount of drugs that spend all their time simply training. So if you think you're just gonna show up to the gym and you're gonna get results, you're gonna get some by showing up, but you're never going to optimize your results because people have an entire profession doing this. Thinking that you're just gonna haphazardly show up to the gym and build muscle is like thinking you're gonna take a ride out to Long Island to the Hamptons for the weekend and you're gonna become a NASCAR driver. Simply not the reality. So going back to the circle rep, let's say I do a curl, but I don't go all the way down. So I go to proceed to do my curl and I only go about 80% of the way down and then back up. Well, there goes part of my circle. And you know what? Instead of 100% of a rep anymore, it's now like 85% of the rep. And then when I come down, as opposed to just staying in a nice good position and then curling back up, maybe I go down and then when I go to lift, I arch my back and I use some momentum. Okay. Well, there goes more of the rep. And now I'm only getting 60% of the repetition. And so if you do 10 reps at 60%, it's really in a sense only doing 60% as much as someone who goes there and does perfect form throughout the entire exercise. This is why I have an app. This is why I filmed over 800 exercises. I have 12 different variations of just reverse lunges because people need to understand proper form and technique in order to work smart. You can go there and do your partial curl with your momentum and work really hard, but you're not gonna get the same results as if you had 100% of the circle. And this analogy extends to anything. If I squat, this is a full range of motion squat. I go all the way down, I go all the way up. But what if I do this? I'm doing 50% of the repetition. I just dropped that circle in half. Or, so now we're at 50% instead of 100%. Or let's say I do barbell bench press and I go down to the bottom and then I bounce it off the top, right? So I go down, I hit my chest and I bounce off it. I use momentum. Again, I'm losing like 30% of the repetition. So obviously 67.5% of statistics are all bullshit, but you understand the analogy. When I do not complete the full circle, I'm taking away a part of the repetition and I'm making each repetition less efficient. So this is the first aspect to mechanical tension, which is just really understanding that you want to optimize each and every single rep that you're doing. The first thing on there is circle rep, which we know means you just want to get 100% of every repetition. But as I alluded to, simply some exercises are not created equal. And there's multiple reasons for this. As an example, something like a hip thruster doesn't have an ideal strength curve. It doesn't mean that the exercise is not bad. In fact, I love hip thrusters. It just means that you're never going to get 100% mechanical tension when doing a hip thruster. And we'll go into more detail about why that is in a second, but that's an example. Going back to my curl example, if I use a dumbbell, there's actually no mechanical tension at the bottom here because of gravity. Gravity is pulling down. My biceps are not engaged at all. In order to make that exercise more optimal, I would have to be doing an incline bench press or actually using a cable with the pulley coming from behind me over here in order to get mechanical tension through the entire exercise. Some of this may be over your head, and that's okay. Again, I have an app that explains all of this stuff and goes into more detail. And I'm also today going to try to help you understand why that is. But just understand, even if you're doing an exercise perfectly, you may not have mechanical tension throughout the entire course of the exercise because some exercises are simply created better than others. And so one of the reasons for that is alignment, right? That not all exercises are created equal. Here's what I mean by alignment. Let's say you proceed to go do a chin-up, and after you get done doing chin-ups, your forearm hurts a little bit. The exercise, maybe you just have better mobility with your right side than you do your left side, and the exercise may not be optimal for you because you have some sort of shoulder mobility issue or you have some sort of wrist mobility exercise. So whenever I'm picking an exercise, I always want to make sure that I'm nice and aligned, that my wrist is over my elbow, over my shoulder, that I'm able to be nice and stacked when I'm able to press and do exercises, and that I actually feel zero pain while going through an exercise. So looking and choosing exercises that are going to help you create mechanical tension mean that you want to pick exercises that are pain-free for you, that you feel the muscle engaging the entire time through. Alignment is part of that process in selecting the correct exercise. The second thing that you really want to look for, especially if you're watching this video, you're probably lifting weights to look better aesthetically. You really want exercises that are stable. So if I'm doing something like a Bulgarian split squat where my foot is elevated and I'm going to be doing it, if I can make that exercise more stable, whether it's I'm holding on to something or whether I'm using a Smith machine, that is a superior exercise than me being unstable. And the reason why is you cannot shoot a cannon from a canoe. In order to generate optimal amount of force, you want to be stable. From a completely muscle building aspect, seated overhead presses are vastly superior to standing because when I stand, I have to stabilize with my abdominals and my mid back in order to generate that force, and it's trying to wobble all over the place. When I'm seated, I am nice and stable. I can really be grounded in. I can push into the back of the bench. I can push through my feet. This is an important aspect to an exercise being optimal. So when I look for exercises, I look for exercises that have great alignment, and I look for exercises that have great stability. And the third thing that I really look for is the strength curve of the exercise. And again, just because something doesn't have one of these principles, it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It just means it might not be as optimal for mechanical tension. So when we talk about the hip thruster, there's a lot of positive aspects to that exercise, but the strength curve of a hip thruster in this position that you're in is that the top part is by far and away the most challenging, and the bottom part is significantly easier. The problem is the top part is what yields the most results. That is the part that's the most important part of the exercise. If I do a lateral raise, there is zero tension in the bottom portion here with a dumbbell. If I do a lateral raise with the dumbbell, there is zero tension at the bottom portion of the lift. And as I lift, because it's a dumbbell and it's subject to gravity, there becomes more tension. But if I change it and I use a cable, the strength curve of it is more continuous, and I'm going to get mechanical tension all the way through the range of motion, not just at the top portion of the motion. So again, remember, you want to get as much mechanical tension, 100% of mechanical tension as possible. So you want to think about that not only as you consciously making decisions to do full range of motion, to try to engage the muscle through the entire range, which is what we talked about, the circle rep principle. But then two, it's also exercise selection and thinking about things like alignment, stability, and strength curve. And again, I understand that these concepts are very difficult. That's why I do coaching. I've helped hundreds of people lose weight. I've had the largest personal training business on the East Coast for years now. It's what my life's work is helping people understand these principles, or simply spoon-feeding it to them because I'm like, hey, go do this, 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 and this, because not everybody has time to master these concepts. But these are important concepts in how to build muscle in the gym. It's also very important to understand that not all muscles respond to the same exercise profile or volume. What do I mean by that? Some people are just going to have exercises that work better for them. Everyone is different. If you have very long femur, this part of the muscle, barbell squatting is probably not a great option for you. There are probably better exercises for you. That doesn't mean that the exercise itself is inferior. It means for you anatomically, it's just not the best exercise. People who have longer arms, they're just simply going to be better deadlifters. They always are. If you have longer arms and shorter legs, those people are going to be your top level deadlifters. And by the way, if you have long arms, you're probably not going to be a great bencher. So anatomically, there can be things besides the exercise that just for you do not mean they're the most optimal exercise. The same is true. We're going to talk about volume in depth later. People respond very, very differently to volume. Certain people, they can do 4 sets of calves, and their calves are fucking sore for days. And they start to grow off doing 6 sets of calves a week. I mean, you've seen it. You've seen people who've never even trained in their life, and they have monster calves. And then you see the dude who's at the gym each and every single day, and they've got like mediocre calves. It happens, and that's because of genetics. Response to stimulus drastically differs from people to people. People have more type 1 or more type 2 fibers. There's a ton of reasons why people respond better. Some people are built more for endurance. Some people are built more for explosivity. And so along with that, the amount of volume you need, like the amount of bicep curls that you might need to do to grow your biceps, drastically differ from person to person. The last point that I really want to touch on, we talked on circle reps, we talked on exercise selection, which is essentially alignment, stability, and strength curve. We've also talked in depth about how just it's not even necessarily exercise's fault. There's individual differences in terms of what exercise will work best for you. But the last thing I want to talk to is mind muscle connection is not enough. So you're thinking about mechanical tension and we're like, oh, mechanical tension is how you build muscle, that's it. Okay, let me give you an example of mechanical tension. Right now, I have mechanical tension in my bicep. I am flexing my bicep. Will this get me bigger fucking biceps? No. No, it won't. Even though there's mechanical tension being achieved, which is the foundation, which is why we started with how to build muscle. The second thing that is required is progressive overload, which is what we're now going to be talking about. Next topic. Guys, thanks for tuning in for this portion of my series, How to Build Muscle in the Gym. Stay tuned because we're going to be releasing the next portion of the series in the coming days. We have a 4-part series that's all about how to build muscle in the gym. If you like what you saw today, please hit subscribe. I release at least one long format piece of content each and every single day. If you're not following me on Instagram, that's where the majority of my following is. Thanks for tuning in. I really enjoy shooting YouTube.